Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Bhanu Pratap. I am from Haryana Agricultural University, Hisar. I am going to present my paper on attitude of research scholars towards the awareness and use of open educational resources during COVID-19 pandemic, a study of CCSHU Hisar, jointly written with Dr. Rajiv Kumar Pateria, which is working as Professor Library Information Science in the Haryana Agricultural University, Hisar. As generally, we know that in this digital era, digital resources have been using more and more by the academicians, research scholars, students. Due to increasing interest in educational arena, now every type of information resources have been trying to procure in digital format. And as in whatever the resources or information available in digital form or electronic form, we can say can be accessible from means anywhere, anytime, without any limitations. Now, open educational resources, the trend is of now slightly bit changed. Uh, Open educational resources has now become very important to break down the barriers of using print and limited resources, and to encourage and enable sharing of contents free of cost. Open educational resources makes it possible to learn means more about the information on particular topic of interest, which are available or accessed anywhere in the world without any time constraints. And during COVID-19 pandemic, we all facing this situation. Agricultural universities regularly provide relevant and important information and resources to the all agricultural stakeholders like farmers, students, teachers, scientists, and other researchers community at their doorstep. Similarly, the libraries of agricultural institutions served their users community for providing access to the digital content easily and at their place of convenience and time of convenience. Therefore, in view of this, a study was planned to know the attitude of research scholars towards the awareness and use of open educational resources during COVID-19 pandemic at Chaudhary Charan Singh Haryana Agricultural University, Hisar. What is open educational resources actually? In actually, open educational resources are those resources which are available in public domain or openly licensed and accessible at no cost. Generally, OER refers to electronic information resources which can be accessed anytime from anywhere or from any remote location. In generally, according to UNESCO into 2021 defined very clearly that open educational resources are teaching, learning, and research material in any medium, digital or otherwise, that reside in public domain or have been released under an open license that permit no cost access, use, and adaptation and redistribution by others with no or limited restrictions. Actually, OER form part of open solutions alongside free and open source software, that is FOSS in abbreviated form, open access, open data, and crowdsourcing platforms. Therefore, in we can say that open access, open resources are sources that do not diminish their ability to produce services when enjoyed. OER provides non-discriminatory access to the resource. OER can be adjusted, amended, and shared anytime. CCSHU where we conducted this study. Uh, Chaudhary Charan Singh Haryana Agricultural University Hisar, after the division of Haryana Punjab state, the first established university in Haryana state in 1970 is Haryana Agricultural University, which is one of the Asia's biggest agricultural university and established by the Act of Parliament by Government of India. In 1991, it was renamed after the India's seventh Prime Minister, that is known as Chaudhary Charan Singh Ji. Thus, now it is known as Chaudhary Charan Singh Haryana Agriculture University, Hisar. The university covers an area of around 9,000 acres, out of which 7,500 acres are means at main campus. That's why I'm calling it this is the means Asia's biggest agricultural university, one of the biggest agricultural university. The universities have 5 constitution colleges within the periphery of the main campus, as well as 2 to 3 3 colleges in within Haryana periphery as an offshoot campuses. And now CCSHU Hisar means served the users farmer community of Haryana, Punjab, and Rajasthan border districts. Objectives of the study of our study paper: to determine the awareness level of OER among the research scholars of CCSHU Hisar, to explore the usage pattern of OERs among the research scholars of CCSHU Hisar, to study the various regions of using OER among the research scholars, to know the satisfaction levels of the research scholars of CCSHUSR on the various features of OERs, open educational resources, to find out the various problems faced by the research scholars of HUSR, to suggest some possible ways to make the open educational resources means more useful. The scope and limitation of our study, the present scope of the study is confined to investigate the attitude of research scholar towards the awareness and use of open educational resources during COVID-19 pandemic at Chaudhry Chand Singh Haryana Agriculture University, Hisar. The study is limited to investigate the opinion of agricultural university research scholars of main campus of CCSHU Hisar only, excluding the research scholars associated with offshoot campuses of the university, however, within the territory of Haryana. Research methodology means adopted for the present study. Survey method with the aid of questionnaire has been used to collect the various collect the data from the targeted respondents in the month of August September 2021. To collect the data, a well-structured questionnaire based on the objective of the study has been prepared and distributed among the 125 agricultural research scholars in the premises of university. The university has now at that time opened for the entire postgraduate, means final year students and PhD research scholars after the slowdown of the severe effects of COVID-19 pandemic. Out of 125 total research scholars, 111 research scholars have been responded positively with filling the Google form means questionnaire, which form the overall response rate 88.80%. Table 1 represent the means data analysis under data analysis and interpretation. Uh, Table 1, the data presented in Table 1 highlight the gender-wise distribution of the respondents, mean the research scholars, and revealed that a total 111 respondents were participated in the study. Out of 111, 50 agriculture research scholars, 55.85% were the male respondent, while 44.15% were female respondent who participated positively in the study. Table 2 means the represent the data about the level and of awareness and use of OER among the research scholars. It was found from the data given in the table that only 10.82% were very familiar with the OER and their use, whereas 18.92% of the respondents were familiar with the OER and involved in some of their use. On the other hand, 27.02% of the respondents were somewhat aware, familiar with the OER and their use. Under data analysis, table 3rd represented the way of learning of OER among the research scholars. It was observed from the data given in table 3 that majority of the respondents, means 80.18% of the respondents, learned directly from the internet, learn about the use of OER through library professionals, while 66.7% of the respondents learned directly from the internet or World Wide Web. On the other hand, 60.36% of the respondents were learned about OER through various seminars, workshops, conferences. Table 4 shows the type of OER used by the respondents for their academic and research purpose. And it was found from the data by the researchers that a big majority of the respondent, means that is 92.79% of the research scholars were preferred to use consortium resources such as Consortium for E-Resources in Agriculture, commonly or very famous known as SERA databases, SERA Consortium in Agriculture and Allied Sciences. Whereas Government and institutions' websites were being used by 83.78% of the respondents. Another side, open access articles from internet were downloaded and accessed by the 74.77% of the respondents, while website links of different resources was being used by 68.74% of the respondents, and followed by the YouTube videos, lectures, presentations, open access repository, open books, textbook, journals, and other respectively. Table 5 represent the various regions of using OER among the research scholars. And the data given in the above this table demonstrated that 92.80% of the respondents were using OER because there is no financial burden lying on them, while 88.29% of the respondents were using OER because it is easily accessible and used. Why using OER takes less time as compared to the use of print resources, whereas using OER enhances the subject knowledge of respondents, that is 69.37%. Purpose of using OER represented by the data given in table 6, and it is clear from the data as represented in table that 78.38% of the respondents were using OER for the purpose of research and publications, while 61.26% of the respondents were using OER for the purpose of preparing for competitive examinations. On the other hand, 63.06% of the respondents were using OER as a teaching learning material, whereas 54.9% 5% of the respondents were using OER for the purpose of preparing class assignments, and followed by the examination, self-learning, and other so on. Now, table 7 represent the various benefits of using OER among the OER as per the opinion get from the research scholars. And it is noticed that from the data given in the table that 10% respondents, 100% of the respondents were using OER because it's available free of cost, whereas 94.60% of the respondents were using OER because it publishes material timely. Another side, 92.8% of the respondents found OER easy to use, while 87.39% of the respondents were using OER because it is available in wide range. Table 8 represents the satisfaction level about using OER among the research scholars, and it is clear that clearly found from the data that 38.74% were satisfied with the means use of OERs, followed by 27.9% were fully satisfied, and 20.72% of the research scholars were somewhat satisfied with the use of OERs. And there is some research scholars, a little bit research scholars, that is only 14 research scholars out of 111 found that were not satisfied with the use of OER with many issues, like network issues or other paying issues in remote areas, remote locations. Now, table 9, barriers or problems using OER. The respondents were asked to highlight the various barriers and problems faced by them during the survey. If any, it is found that 65.76% of the respondents reported that they have lack of awareness about the OER, while 62.16% of the respondents have a fear about copyright infringement. And another side, 54.05% of the respondents found lack of motivations toward the use of OER, whereas 46.85% of the respondents were facing the problem of lack of time to access the contents or OER. In the end, we see the now in these during COVID pandemic, as well as in this digital era, open access resources means OER contents are now being mostly widely used by the research scholars or the research community in academics as well as in research activities. And in this study, it is found that only 30% of the research scholars or agricultural research scholars were very familiar or properly familiar with the open educational resources. So in conclusion, it can be said that open educational resources are very important in academia and research. OER will be proven backbone to every educational or research institutions in future, as well as OER revolution is going on worldwide, as OER can be accessible at no cost, free of cost, without time restrictions, without place restrictions. However, some barriers or problems were also faced by the respondents or research agricultural research scholars while using OER. Therefore, it is suggested that proper training and awareness program must be organized by all the agricultural uh, teachers or universities or university authorities or library authorities for the teachers, researchers, scientists on a frequent basis, so that all the agricultural stakeholder or agri stakeholder, particularly postgraduate students and PhD research scholars, would get proper awareness about the use of OER in their academic and research endeavor. Thank you so much.